Well, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome everyone to this exclusive and unique online session where we're going to give this news about this new tender of large-scale battery storage in South Africa. I am thrilled to welcome you all. And today with us, we have two experts who are going to be talking to us about this opportunity, and I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves. So, Prince, tell us a little bit about you and about Eskom. Just make sure you take the mute off first. Yeah, there you go. It gets tricky.
Thank you. I'm not too sure I'm an expert, but let me introduce myself. And I realize that it's a worldwide event, so some people, it's ungodly hours where you are. Our apologies, we'll try and be to the point. My name is Prince Moyo, and I'm General Manager at Eskom South Africa. I'm responsible for the engineering of transmission and distribution infrastructure and covering the whole spectrum from standards development to support to the operations. And Excellent. I've been with Eskom for 22 years in various roles. And if you want more of my profile, you can find it on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Prince. And also with us today is Fred from the World Bank. Fred, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. Frederic Verdol, I'm a senior power engineer at the World Bank, based in our Pretoria office. I am in charge of this battery storage program that we are developing with Eskom. I will talk today also on behalf of my colleague and friend Anthony Karambu, who is leading the activity on the African Development Bank side. So as I said, I'm an engineer by training. I was in the French utility a long time ago, where I did develop some battery projects. And now I am doing the same at the World Bank. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so to all of you, before we continue, I'd like to ask you, what is the context for this session? And what are you hoping to achieve by holding it, so that everyone understands, what we're doing here today, what we're going to be talking about. So, Prince, do you want to begin?
Yes, Belen. For today, essentially, I would like that we confirm the project and the scope of the project, and also to share with the audience the groundwork that Eskom has done, as well as get input in terms of how the audience might feel we can package the inquiry better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Fred, anything to add? What's your take on this?
Just to complement, basically it's a first for Eskom, for World Bank, and for EFDB to actually implement battery storage infrastructure. So we want to make it right. This is the main reason why we are reaching out to actually present to you what we intend to do all together in partnership, and also to get your feedback on because we obviously know that some firms are very, very much experienced in the battery storage. Thanks.
Excellent. So with this in mind, you're going to hear, an exclusive, and you are expected also to, chip in your 2 cents with your thoughts, your questions. However, before we begin, I have to let you know we aren't going to take live questions during the session. You can send them through, whether they're questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations. All of those will be taken under advisement by both the World Bank and Eskom in terms of making decisions for this new tender and presenting the new tender. But unfortunately, we're not going to have the opportunity to answer them live today. So please send them through. Make sure you understand that this is all public information. So the questions, recommendations that you send are going to be available publicly, and also the responses to them are going to be available to everyone, because it is a matter of utmost importance to the World Bank and Eskom that there is transparency in the information out there. So send them through. For that, use the Q&A box. We will be recording all of those. They'll stay with us. And before the end of the session, I will pass you a link with where you can send further things. If you went home the next day and you remember something, you can also send us through until Monday morning. You have time to send us through further comments and questions. but you will not actually hear them today. So before we start, I'm going to ask people in the audience, and there's a lot of you there today, to please answer very quickly 2 questions for us so that we can see it in our screen. So I'm going to ask to my colleague Araceli, can you please launch the first survey? And please, I'm going to ask you guys to just vote for that. Very simple. What geographical area are you joining us from? You know, is it Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, North America, or other, or all of the others, I suppose? If you could just vote, I'm going to give you, I'm going to do a countdown. 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to show that. I'm going to show, can you show us the results? Overwhelmingly, we are from Africa, so this is really good. I'm really glad to see, you know, that this is the case for sure. And I'm going to now throw a second question to you. And the second question is really simple. Are you a battery manufacturer, an EPC, system integrator, electrical contractor, or other? So also very simple, so everyone can know who is in the room. And once again, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Can we see that, please, Araceli? All right. So mostly other, but we do have quite a lot of EPC system integrators, 34%, so more than. And we have the amount of battery manufacturers. Of course, these are the people who've answered this. Not everyone has answered, I think. But in any case, let's continue. We have an idea now who is there. So without further ado, I'll ask Prince, please, could you prepare your screen, your presentation? And whilst Prince prepares his presentation to begin, I'd just like to remind you all how this session is going to work. Very simple. Prince is going to speak first, then Fred's going to speak, and then after that, I actually have some questions for them, some clarifications that I'd like them to put across, providing we have the time. We are not going to take your questions and comments, but please send them through the Q&A box. Very important you use the Q&A box because those get recorded in our system. This will be passed on to Prince and to Fred to be taken under advisement in terms of improving the tender. So it's important that you have your voice heard. Okay, I think we're ready. Prince, you're ready? Go ahead.
Thank you. So welcome again, everyone, and I'll take you through the first part of the webinar. That is what we are titling it. It's a large-scale battery storage opportunity, and it's a flagship project on our side in Eskom. Today, I've got 3 main objectives, and is to provide you with a background of the project, to discuss the requirements, and to clarify the next steps. And a little bit about Eskom. As you can see there, it's a state-owned utility, supplies most of South Africa's electricity. We connect over 200,000 people, households, to the grid. That's about 1 million people. And we are up to about 6.5 million on customers now. Our generation capacity, 45 gigawatts, 17.4 under construction, just over half of it complete. And our sales in terms of energy, about 200 terawatt hours, and about 48,000 employees, including subsidiaries. We are the largest utility in Africa. We are moving towards cleaner power, and for more of that, you can read the Renewable Energy Program in South Africa, which Eskom connects. And for our part, we are also preparing to complement that program with this battery energy storage project. So how this project came about: in 2010, Eskom concluded a loan agreement with the World Bank and others for Medupi, and there were additional project development objectives stipulated there, one of which was Eskom had to implement a 100 megawatt concentrated solar plant. Obviously, the intention from the World Bank was to roll out cutting edge clean technology to indicate our intentions to have cleaner energy. In 2016, after developing the project and going out to market unsuccessfully, Eskom then decided to look at alternatives, which was accepted by the funders, and engineering for the alternative started with my colleagues in the generation space. But as you can imagine, storage is a great solution. And so my team got involved, and when Eskom confirmed that in 27 that we would be pursuing distributed battery storage with PV, then we were engaged as the engineers to develop. So this is battery energy storage systems to be implemented in 2 phases, achieving 1,440 megawatt hours of energy shifting per day. I will cover the items as indicated here, the scope, timeline, process to follow, some important considerations and next steps. And the scope of the project, I've already said the energy shifting quantity. It's fixed in terms of the BESS megawatt hours and the solar PV capacity. We are implementing it in 2 phases. And in addition to the BESS, and well, I'll talk about the PV later, we have OT solutions, which are called a VPP, a virtual power plant, and an asset performance management system, APM system. The PV is 60 megawatt combined. And as part of the scope, we are expecting the EPC we are going to engage to also do the technical due diligence of the phases. So we have done some work, but part of the scope is to confirm the technical due diligence. There are some important components that we have identified about this project. They are generic, really. We are technology agnostic, no preference. We are going to be focusing on functional and technical requirements for the BESS to meet the use case and integrate with the Eskom infrastructure. The configuration must be able to work, in particular with the virtual power plant in future. Then compliance is a very important point around conformance to industry best practice standards, including the safety aspect. And then on the grid code, yes, there are developments on the grid code, the renewable power producer connections, and the battery energy storage facilities. And then there will be some skills transfer to be embarked upon. On the operating and maintenance side, we thought we should make it clear what is in scope for the EPC and what is out of scope that Eskom will take responsibility for. So firstly, in scope is the operating and maintenance of the BESS and the associated equipment and facilities, and the operating and maintenance of the physical security systems that are listed there. Out of scope is the operating and maintenance of the standard control plant and power plant equipment, which we call network integration equipment. So this is from your circuit breakers, the normal AC circuit breakers, protection equipment, DC and so on, telecontrol and so on. And then also security systems monitoring service will be Eskom's responsibility together with the first response or reaction service. Eskom's responsibility, technical specifications, and while we are there, I must explain that Eskom has already done some work. We have had to develop a BESS specification. We couldn't get one officially available off the shelf, so we've had to develop our own. We have also compiled our normal AC equipment specifications, which we buy every day as part of our normal business. And then we have also compiled specifications for converter transformers, which we don't use very often, but because we have got inverters here, the transformer specification is not exactly the common one. And then we have also done some concept design. So that is the first thing that Eskom has done, and we will be handing over to EPC for validation and taking forward. We are also taking responsibility for environmental approvals, for site selection, land acquisition, and we are engaging the regulator with respect to licensing of these facilities. The EPC, or the supplier as we call them, we expect them to verify our technical studies that we have done and then take our concept designs to detailed design per site. And of course, they will execute the project, full design, supply, and install, and then comply with the requirements for hazardous material management, and then provide also product and functional guarantees. In terms of timeline, there is the phase 1, which I said is, well, you will see it later, the phase, how it's broken down, but yes, we have completed the technical due diligence and we have 8 sites for phase 1. The total is 200 megawatts, 800 megawatt hours. And phase 2, we are currently conducting the technical due diligence. We have narrowed down the sites and we will be completing that in 2 months. And there the total is 160 megawatts to 640 megawatt hours. We, as I said, we also have the 60 megawatt of PV, and we have the virtual power plant and the asset performance management system. The important thing to note is that phase 1 is due for completion December 2020. So the timelines are really tight on this one. The phase 2 is for December 2021. The process that we have followed is we have completed the first phase, especially with respect to phase 1 of confirming the financing. We have selected the procurement strategy together with the funders. We are at a stage where we are ready to issue the bids subject to 1 or 2 approvals. And after that, obviously, are the evaluations, post-qualification, and selection of the successful bidder. So phase 1 is 4 packages. That same 200 megawatts, 8 projects is going to be 4 packages. The approach for phase 2 is being defined. If we feel we have learned enough, we are likely to approach a big bang approach, to utilize a big bang approach, but we are also likely to stagger it. Post-qualification assessment is going to consider past experience and installations completed, appropriate skills, the track record, capacity, capability, and the quality of information on the subcontractors. And then the regulation 24 of CIDB is really with respect to advertising the inquiry. And then an important point of localization. So we would not like to import everything, and we have a minimum 20% local content for the phase 1 projects. We are giving you pointers here in terms of how you could achieve that. Subcontracting to local suppliers, maintenance and operating, as well as some designated local material or equipment, which is already designated by the Department of Trade and Industry, such as your transformers, your cables, your steel, and so on. And then skills development is also counted under localization. Evaluation of bids is going to follow the steps of looking at substantial responsiveness. So this is the preliminary examination of the bids. You know, there are rules around eligibility. Is the bid complete? We will verify everything and then confirm the bid security as well. Commercial evaluation is really a pass-fail criteria, as well as confirmation of the particular contract conditions that we would have proposed. And then on the technical side, we're looking at safety, health, environment, as well as all mandatory requirements, the technical ones, as far as compliance to the core specifications. And then we will move on to evaluation of cost, which we are approaching as a total cost of ownership. So it's not just capital cost, but we're also looking at if it's a technology that requires augmentation during the life, we will consider that. Operating costs, the energy that it requires to take in order to discharge, as well as the operating and maintenance costs and disposal costs. So we will do a rand per megawatt hour analysis of the offers, and we will be looking for the most efficient from that perspective. And the successful bidder, after looking at capability and everything beyond that, is then identified, the most advantageous bid. In terms of other considerations, in South Africa, we have a limit of 500 cubic meters of hazardous substance material. If you would like your environmental authorizations to move fast, otherwise, if your solution is more than that, then you are talking in the order of 2 years or so to get an environmental authorization. It becomes a full environmental impact assessment. And we are also emphasizing that you need to manage hazardous materials responsibly. There is limited space, and that will be indicated per site. We have done the groundwork, and then the time constraints per the deliverables. As I have said, phase 1 is really tight time constraints. Augmentation allowed for in the bid if it's a technology that requires that. And then we have normal product guarantees for the equipment, but we are also looking at performance guarantees from the perspective of, in particular, megawatts and megawatt hour output. And of course, we are interested in a certain minimum performance for the life of the plant. And we are going to be considering penalties for non-adherence to these performance guarantees. We're still discussing this. Before I go to the next steps, let me say that for those that are technically inclined, yes, our inquiry is going to be on arbitrage, mainly energy shifting. Some of the sites we have selected are going to benefit from storage by relieving congestion at transmission level or distribution level. And thirdly, frequency support. So the extent of each is going to be indicated in the inquiry. But we are certainly looking at this approach of staking value benefits and maximizing the value. In terms of next steps, getting to the end now, is that for Eskom, we will be issuing the request for bids as soon as we get the confirmation to go ahead. And we have a lot of that approval internally, all financial, all procurement approval. And with our external stakeholders, being a state-owned entity, the Ministry of Finance has had to give approval, and yes, they have given approval. And the shareholder ministry now, under which we fall, the Department of Public Enterprises, is the one that is remaining to apply their minds and give us a response. And of course, the funders will have to give a no objection that everything is above board, and then we can go to market. For those that are intending to bid, you must note the special conditions in the inquiry. We are using a World Bank procurement approach. You can submit questions, comments, suggestions, as we have said, and then look out for the bid notification on the relevant sites that are indicated there, and then respond to the bids in full. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prince. It was excellent, and I didn't have to remind you about the time, so perfect. Thank you very much. If you can stop sharing, please, at the top. And you guys, we know where we're spending New Year's Eve for 2020 and 2021. We will be celebrating that the plant is going live right that day as well. You guys have picked the exact time to go celebrate. So excellent. Fred, you are next. If you can please share your screen and prepare. And whilst Fred prepares, just a reminder, yes, we are recording. We will send you the link. We'll send you also the presentations to download. Send your questions and answers through the Q&A box, and sorry, questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations. We will not answer them, but we will take them under advisement. Don't use the chat box, please. This is for all new people. You know, a lot of new people have been joining. So please do send them through there, because this will be actually given to Prince and to Frederick to consider. So Fred, if you unmute your microphone, then we're ready for you. And we see perfectly the screen, so you're ready to go.
Perfect, thank you. So actually I will do a sort of mirror presentation going over the lender's perspective on this program. Again, I'm talking today on behalf of our colleagues in African Development Bank, with whom we are partnering to support Eskom battery storage program. So about the program, first of all, why now, and how is it? Where does it come from? How you can see here. Basically, the project comes from an initial engagement with Eskom that was a multi-lender program on the renewable energy development with Eskom. You can see that there were a lot of different sources of fund. From these sources of funds, today there is the Clean Technology Fund and the IBRD that still have funds remaining and engaged for this program as of today. Obviously, the other lenders, actually, some of them are considering supporting also this activity, and Eskom also is, of course, supporting the activity. Initially, the project was derived from another activity that was a demonstration CSP plant. This project did not go through, and then from that, Eskom decided to request a change of activity because CSP was at that time in 2017 already commercially viable in South Africa. So basically, Eskom proposed the following. As there was a new development on green energy, wind and solar in South Africa, Eskom wanted to be proactive and use battery storage as a demonstration technology to show that the impact of variable renewable energy can be mitigated through a program on the grid. So basically, the idea would be to use this technology in order to enable integration of renewable energy onto the grid. This was a key thing for us, CFDB and World Bank, because basically it's in line with the initial objectives of the project, which are enable clean energy development and then test or demonstrate technologies that can be transformational for clean energy development, and contribute to mitigate or to avoid carbon emissions. So going forward, we basically the lenders approved and endorsed this activity and went with Eskom through due diligence that is coming to its end now with the procurement phase. So we'll not go really through the detail of this, but basically the idea is to see where the different technologies and new capacity on variable renewable energy will be installed, and then to see also where Eskom will have some reliability issues due to this. And then the idea is to use the storage in order to mitigate or to attenuate these impacts. So Prince explained it very well. Again, here, the idea for us is to really see an impact not only on the CO2 emission reduction offset, but also on the clean energy enablement into the grids. Some thoughts about Eskom commitment and why we do think it will be a success. It's of course an ambitious project, a first of a kind in Africa. It's a program, so it's making it even more complex. The fact that Eskom from the start was committed to the project was a really, really positive point. And then at the bottom, actually, the technical experience and readiness, the fact that at the origins of the project, there was Eskom expertise on storage with pumped hydro, and Eskom basically experiment that they were doing on a research basis, leading to test this technology. This was two very positive points where we saw the commitment and readiness, and all along the due diligence, we saw that the different levels of approval and proactivity of Eskom team showed to us that basically, as Prince said, it would be a flagship for the utility. And then on top of that, or in complement to that, on the national side and government side, there were some positive signals, let's say this way, that were basically on the fact that the draft master plan of the country now has targets on battery technology and battery capacity, and that and also the fact that the frameworks for regulatory and environmental aspects of battery storage were under discussion as of the grid code, as you saw. So these were very positive aspects, and maybe the most positive signal was the fact that the exemption was granted by the government to use World Bank procurement guidelines for this program, and it's important to note that the FDB will also apply these guidelines for the project. So, well, we want the project to be a success, definitely. Here, basically, we want also to see how we can make it a bigger success, meaning that obviously a first of a kind activity project in Africa and in South Africa. It's a demonstration. Some say that it's too big to be a demonstration, but remember that the size of the peak demand is above 30,000 megawatts in South Africa. So in order to demonstrate that a program on energy storage really doesn't impact, you have to have a significant size. And then also the fact that there was before that no battery developed in the country on the grids. It was also something that was challenging in order to say that it would work. Above all these objectives under the project, we saw different levels of, let's say, transformation. At the utility perspective, definitely there will be some good aspects. On the learning phase, we will put a lot of emphasis on the monitoring and evaluation of this program with Eskom in order for not only Eskom to be able to replicate and to actually guide the other IPPs or other entities that would like to use battery storage in South Africa, but also for Eskom to have more flexibility on its grid, still having a good reliability, and then integrate the new solar and wind that are coming very soon. And in addition to that, be able to implement its energy transition plan. So definitely a plus on the utility perspective, and that's the reason why certainly the let's say the motivation is there. On South Africa also, we discussed with a lot of stakeholders around the project. And in addition to the project itself and the scale-up phase of the project, they see also the possibility to have an integration along the value chain of battery storage. South Africa has a lot of potential in terms of mineral, and South Africa has also some potential in terms of industrialization. So definitely the different entities in the government saw an interest in looking at the battery storage, not only as a technology of change, but also as a new market for South Africa. And then more broadly on the region, the perspective to have basically a beacon project in South Africa, and then that can not only provide guidance, good practices, and other type of knowledge exchange with other countries, but in addition to that, have a market that is coming from there and growing from there. It's definitely something that can be also envisioned that as a transformational aspect. So on all of those, basically the partners of Eskom, we see this as a sort of cherry on the cake, but definitely we also would like to provide assistance in order to make this aspect move. And then, just added some latest points on very positive signals that were sent from New York this week. You certainly follow that, the fact that UK commits to have more funds available for battery storage development, and the fact also that the potential for value chain scale up is also demonstrated. It was really resonating in the statement of the president of South Africa, where he basically said that the minerals are there, the labor force is there, the market is there, so let's do all the value chain integration in South Africa. When the master plan of the country will be finalized, what is also of interest certainly for the different suppliers that are attending today is that some future wind and solar IPPs may be also interested in having hybrid projects, PV plus battery, wind and battery in South Africa. As of today, to my knowledge, there is none. So definitely there would be something to look at in terms of scale up there. So I touch upon a little bit on energy storage partnership, which is an initiative that was launched by the World Bank 1 year ago now, in order to basically foster the knowledge and inform the policy makers and governments on how to accelerate the development of battery storage in their respective countries. Just to mention that this aspect also is obviously developed by the different partners like AFDB and other partners of World Bank and AFDB using battery storage all over the world and in Africa. Meaning that, for instance, like all emerging technologies, we are trying to foster knowledge in order to learn from every project and every initiative, and help the other countries and the other clients to accelerate their deployment. So from that, we'll go very quickly on this. Basically, the projects and the funds that are already available right now for the Eskom battery storage project are part of the global efforts that the World Bank pledged last year at the UN actually for concessional financing for battery storage. So this is exactly the type of effort that we wanted to make. Just to mention that Eskom project was the first one that was approved by World Bank Management on battery storage. Since then, there have been others, but definitely being the first one on a new technology where we don't know if it will work, it was a hustle. But today we can see that it's already paying back, because basically some guidance is shared between our team in South Africa and the other teams that are doing the same project in other regions. So very quickly, the objectives is definitely to share knowledge and to help to accelerate the development of battery storage. It is mostly, this platform is mostly for public officials, but definitely there will be public and private events, workshops, initiatives that are done in order to also help the battery storage community to meet and to brainstorm on new frontier topics. So, for instance, one of the key topics we were discussing was about using battery storage in very fragile power systems, for instance, where you have a very, very low reliability of the grid. And then this aspect also will be discussed, and we hope to have a lot of feedback from the sector also. So on this, just to show that there are as of now many partners for this partnership. You can find online Energy Storage Partnership World Bank. You can find online the different ways to join or to participate to the future events. What I just wanted to say there is that definitely on all of the different events and workshops that we will organize through this partnership, Eskom will be definitely seen as one of the pioneer, and then we hope that the Eskom and his future partners will show us the way to deploy battery storage in Africa. Thank you very much. I hope I was not too long. I think it's fine.
No, you guys, you did both perfect. So thank you very much. If I can ask you to take off your screen so that we can see you just at the top where it says stop sharing. So now it's the three of us. No one is watching, only the hundreds of people that are there online. So I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you. Just have a few clarifications and stuff. Just to remind everyone, in case you've joined a little bit later, we're not going to answer the questions that you've sent through at this point. These are going to be sent to the World Bank, to Fred and to Prince and Eskom under advisement, for them to take into consideration. We will also send a link to you in case you want to add anything else. I'm going to ask my colleague to share this link with you in case later on, you have ideas that you want to add to that to be considered as well. And you have until Monday, 9 a.m. in South Africa to send those through. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions and a few clarifications. You've mentioned most things, but I just wanted to make sure, that there is clarity around these things. The first thing is, this is a question for you, Fred. You mentioned that this was the first of a kind project in Africa, and that you hope to see a lot of sort of like a mushroom effect, or however you want to call it. So where are you foreseeing this leadership from Eskom, or this first project, to take us to? Where the next steps, or the next countries, the next regions to move forward with this kind of projects? Okay.
Well, yeah, a couple of things. What we see is that the replication in South Africa and the scale-up will be very important for us. What we see is that there was before we start discussing with the authorities after Eskom proposed this project, there was basically very, very little discussion on the legal framework, on the licensing, on the environmental aspect, and on the scale up and on the financing of battery storage in South Africa. So we expect to actually make the case and make a sort of a snowball effect there in South Africa. So replication effect in South Africa, replication effect in Africa, because it's very important to have the demonstration impact and effect. We saw that for many technologies. Sharing good practices will be also a key aspect for us on procurement to start, and then also on operation of these batteries. Eskom has a lot of innovative ideas on how to use them. You know, several batteries, and then it will be important and interesting to see how we can share these good practices. And lastly, market development. Basically, how to develop a market from South Africa and for Africa continent. We see that as basically a hub, a platform that could take form in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Fred. The questions keep on rolling. Please send them to the Q&A box. You know, we'll take those with us thereafter. All right. So one of the questions I think that everyone's asking is, why are you giving concessional finance to utility rather than, you know, choosing a project or, you know, a company perhaps? Why the utility? Why this project?
Yeah, this question came a lot on the different discussions we had. And then also one aparté, apologize to all the prospects who are reaching out very nervously, because since general procurement notice in May, there have been very low communication. So basically we were in the kitchen preparing the project. So thanks for your patience. Well, in short, the funding was already there. So the idea was to say at the time of the CSP project, the idea was to say, do we pursue the demonstration of CSP public finance in South Africa? And then there were already 3 or 4 IPPs deploying commercially finance for CSP. And then at that time, Eskom was thinking about you know, SDG 7, universal access for all, and then they were experimenting batteries in order to supply pockets here and there with PV and battery. So from that all started. Basically, it was Eskom's initiative and Eskom's proposal. We signed off because we thought that it would be the good timing, and also because we thought that it would take longer to have the legal framework in place for private sector to deploy batteries, even with concessional financing. So this is why we decided to go ahead. In short, there are many other reasons, but in short, it's this reason.
Thank you very much, Fred. A question for Prince. I wanted to ask you a question about the viability and the choice of your technology. And how do you know, or what work have you done to know that this technology and this project is economically viable?
Yes, Belen, another commonly asked question. And I think if we are listening carefully, we would have heard the project development objectives, which were primarily to offset the greenhouse gas emissions and so on. So you will get people asking, why is it not a frequency only application? Because that is probably more viable than arbitrage and so on. So the first thing is that this is not a discretionary choice and investment decision from Eskom. It's not like we started with a clean slate. It's actually fulfilling loan conditions, and one of the conditions is that we are going to pursue breakthrough technologies. So profitability is probably a secondary consideration, but obviously at Eskom we have done our best to make sure that we can maximize value. And in addition to arbitrage, I've already said we will benefit distribution networks by relieving them of congestion. Instead of replacing circuits or equipment, we'll be able to benefit with battery storage. And then we are also looking at some limited application of frequency control. And we will record all costs and all revenues for the project so that we can learn from this going forward. Yes. And
a question to you both, and it's a little bit hard, so I hope you guys answer, but what worries you most, about the technical and economical viability of this project? Because, it's a new technology, there is a certain amount of risk on it, and we know, it's very trendy and everyone is the future, but, what worries you about it? What are the challenges that you see coming?
Prince first.
Okay, so
I'm gonna get an answer, yay.
I'm most worried, obviously, because this is a new technology, and I happen to look after the centers of excellence that roll out new technology. So I don't know what I don't know, and that worries me, but we will learn. Also, timelines are very tight, and I see also people commenting, yes, if we conclude the market and evaluations early next year, you've got 6-9 months to deliver on the different packages, and we are hopeful it can still be done. So timelines for phase 1 are tight. And then secondly, standards, we've spent a lot of time compiling standards, and we hope we have been clear enough without overdoing it, that the inquiry will be very clear. And then finally, safety, the safety side. I'm worried about safety because some technologies are facing problems around the world, and we would like to learn from that and not repeat those mistakes. Thank you.
Fred?
And maybe to complement all that, plus maybe what worries me is timing. Basically, it would be great to have batteries up and running before the next generation and the next wave of wind and solar are connected to the grid. And then also the timing of decentralized PV that may play a major role if it's scaling up at the pace it's expected in South Africa. And all this put together, including now the climate events like droughts in Zambia that makes the regional trade of electricity affecting the supply demand in South Africa. All this makes it basically, from a demonstration project, it makes it a very much needed project and very timely. So we hope that the timing will be right, and then the batteries will land right on time.
It's great that you mentioned the issue of timing, because guess what I'm going to ask you next? There's been a lot of questions, before the webinar to me as to what's happening, when is the RFP going to be released, and, how long will we give in to respond to it, and when will you make your decision? So I know that a lot of the things are in the kitchen, but, do you have an estimated time where we can tell folks, okay, this is more or less how it's going, so that they know and they know what to expect?
Is that for me?
Yes.
But maybe I can start on that one.
Yes.
Because most of the different suppliers may know about the World Bank procurement guidelines. Those who don't know, they are online on many different languages on the World Bank website. But this international competitive bidding under these guidelines are known and pretty much rigid. So those ones, at least you will know about this timing once the procurement has started. After that, for the start and then the sequencing, it will be Eskom's basically decision, and Eskom will give the tempo.
Yes, from my side, the challenge with I understand Fred's answer explains the process once it has started, but everyone is interested in when will it start. And I would not be telling you the truth if I told you I know exactly when, because, but I hinted in my presentation that we have got all approvals except for one approval. And we need that approval. Well, I can say one or two. The one is our own government statutory approval. The second one is obviously a no objection from the World Bank on the full documentation pack and the other funders. And then we can go to market. So, you never know. Maybe we have got the approval today from government. the Department of Public Enterprises, and then in a couple of weeks, we can do the rest and go to market. Maybe they are still going to take some time. We don't know, but that approval has been delayed. It's the concern has been escalated to the highest level, and we are sure that it's receiving attention, but we cannot tell when we will receive it. So it's imminent. That's all I can say.
I like the word imminent, so long as we keep it with its true meaning as defined by the Oxford Dictionary. So it's good. Okay, guys, here are some dates that we can hold everyone to. Okay, tomorrow you will get an email with the link to the landing page with the recordings, both presentations, both from Fred and from Prince, and also the link to the questions that, you know, Araceli has just been sharing with you, where you can send further questions, comments. We have 91 questions, comments. We're going to pass them on to Prince and Fred tomorrow as well, so they can start working. You know, no pressure here. You guys are not going to, we're going to have to work through the weekend, I'm afraid. So this closes, you have until Monday, 9 a.m. in South Africa to send whatever it is that you want to send. And then I literally take all of that stuff, send it over to them for consideration. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. Because we're working with Eskom and with Fred, with the World Bank and, sorry, with Prince and Eskom, and we have Fred in the World Bank, we're going to try and help. So Prince, Fred, will you send to me the RFP as soon as it's going to come out so that I can forward it along to everyone that is signed up for this webinar? Yes?
Yep.
So, yes. So I will send it to everyone as well, immediately.
Yes, we have said yes, but everyone must know the official channels, which
Correct.
will be the World Bank site, Eskom website, CIDB, and so on. And then so spread it, that will be fine.
So everything is in the official channels, of course, the World Bank website, Eskom website, African Development Bank, but we will send you an update as well, okay? So if you have received an email from us tomorrow evening, say, then contact us, because it's probably going into the trash, but we will send it to you again so that you have the landing page and you can keep your comments. Then once they send us the RFP, we will send it on, but we are not the official channel. We're just, you know, wanting to help out, because at the end of the day, this is what we do, increase communication, that is all. And we are here to help for whatever else it's needed at any point. You know, when you have the official responses to everything, again, if you send me the link, which will be in Eskom and in the World Bank, we will also further that along. So before we leave, I just want to ask you guys a question in the audience. That we want to know for our purposes. We want to understand whether you're interested in actually participating with an actual proposal for this tender. So I'm going to ask Araceli to put up this question, and I would like you to please answer it. Are you going to go ahead and send, are you going to submit a bid? Is it going to be yes for sure, no for sure, or, you know, I'm still thinking about it. Perhaps if you're still thinking about it, then you have some questions, some comments, and you can send those through. Okay, so I'm going to give 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. And what I can tell you is that there is a lot of people interested. I'm not exactly going to show that, but there is a lot of people interested in this tender, so this is good to see. I'm really looking forward, because this is the first of many, and I think it's the first of complete change, new technology, so it's always very exciting to be part of this. So without further ado, would you like to add anything before we say goodbye, Prince?
Nothing from my side, thank you very much.
And anything from you, Fred?
No, nothing. Thank you, Belen and team, and looking forward the future steps of the project.
Perfect. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much in the audience, Fred and Prince, for your time, and everyone else. See you next, and check out for our email. If you don't get it, please contact us. It might have gone into your trash folder. Just make sure you put us in the save list. Thank you very much. Bye.